Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Basic Education Board.
Hello, dear wonderful students of Senior 3 Chemistry class. I just want to welcome you to this lesson number 1 of Unit 11. Unit 11 is about petroleum products and polymerization. This is the last unit. So we'll not be looking at this unit once again, and probably we'll have 2 or 3 lessons. So this is lesson number 1. And we'll only look at the origin of crude petroleum or crude oil and their uses. So as we go along, what are we expected to know at the end of the lesson? I mean, the students. What are you expected to know? We would have to describe how oil is formed. We will describe how oil is produced. And then we'll look at what are the products of the crude petroleum and their uses. As simple as that. So that is what we are just going to look at for this first lesson. Dear students, please get ready with your notebooks and pen so that you note down some important information. It is very, very important to write when you are following the lesson. So when we talk about the petroleum products, there are a number of them. So these are carbon-containing compounds. The carbon-containing compounds, apart from alkanes, alkenes, and alcohol. Examples of these, some of the petroleum products may include liquid petroleum gas. This is the one that you use in homes for cooking. When we say we are using gas at home. If you have the gas at home, this is liquefied petroleum gas. So it is one of the products of the petroleum products. Then you have kerosene, you have petrol, you have diesel, and among others, there are very many, but we will also look at a number of them. One of the world's most important raw material is the crude oil. So countries which have oil are the richest countries. The countries, I repeat, the countries that have oil, that crude petroleum, are richest countries. So that means, that's why we are saying it is one of the most world's important raw material, because in crude petroleum, a number of various products are obtained. Crude petroleum is a mixture of hydrocarbons. We mentioned about the hydrocarbons that include the alkanes, alkenes, and the alkynes. So those are the mixture of them. Crude oil contain a number of those hydrocarbons. So where do we get this crude oil? So crude oil is obtained, from the remains of plant and animal that lived many millions of years ago. So that means many millions of years. Crude oil, when plants, animals die, where do they go? They decompose, move under the layers, under the layers of the earth, and then they decompose in the presence of the bacteria and pressure, and then they are converted into crude petroleum. So these remains form sediments at the bottom of the seas and become buried under layers of the sedimentary rocks. When you look at the diagram over there, look at the screen, please. This is the diagram. We have the sea, we have the rock layers, then we have the crude oil. They decompose and then deposit under the rocks. When they deposit under the rocks, we say these are dead plants and animals which turn into crude oil. This is one of the examples, an animal. This process takes millions of years. It is not a process that takes 100 years. It takes 1,000 years, millions of years. So they decay, that is plants and organisms, in the absence of the oxygen, under the action of heat and pressure to form crude oil. So the decomposition takes place in the absence of oxygen, but in the presence of heat and pressure, then that composition will take. So it is fossil fuel. These we call them fossil fuels. The crude products of crude petroleum are also referred to as fossil fuels because it is formed once living organisms and sun as the origin of the source of the energy. Fossil fuels. So when we talk about the fossil fuels, we are referring to these products of the crude petroleum, which is a combination of hydrocarbons. That is something that you need to remember. Then when we talk about coal, you have ever heard coal and natural gas, mainly methane, are often found with crude oil. So whenever there is this gas, methane, we know there is methane gas in Kivu. So if there is methane gas, that means there could also be other products of crude petroleum, which may develop also at one time, later after a number of years. So there are also renewable fossils. We call them renewable fossils. Non-renewable fossils. So they are used and get depleted. They are used and finished. That's what we mean by non-renewable. When the fossil fuels are burned, the carbon in form of carbon dioxide is returned to the environment because they contain carbon as the main component. And when they burn, so they change into carbon dioxide. For example, you have methane. When it burns in oxygen to produce the heat, it will liberate carbon dioxide, and which is regenerated into the atmosphere and then used by the plants. So you will find it in the cycle. You will find it in the cycle. The plants, the animals contain carbon when they die, and then they decompose and turn into these products. But when these products are burnt, then they will regenerate the carbon dioxide. So you'll find them in form of the cycle. So how do we obtain these products in the layers that we have mentioned under the earth crust? How do we get these products of crude petroleum? So the method that is used is fractional distillation. Probably we could have talked about, or you could have heard about this in your senior one when we are talking about methods of separating the mixtures. Fractional distillation. So crude oil is a thick black liquid with strong smell. Unless its components are separated, crude oil does not have much use. So crude oil as a whole entity has very limited uses. And unless it is separated, when it is separated into its components, the components are the ones which are very important. That is what we are talking about. So during fractional distillation at refinery, or the separation, the mixture of hydrocarbons is sorted out into group or individual hydrocarbons. And this is what we call the fractions. And that's why the method is called fractional distillation. During fractional distillation at refinery, the mixture of hydrocarbons is sorted out into groups or individual hydrocarbons called fractions. And this is only possible by using a fractionating column. We have said the mixture of hydrocarbons is sorted out into groups or individual hydrocarbons called fractions. You remember we said crude oil is a combination or is a mixture of these hydrocarbons. But we said they can be separated by fractional distillation. But fractional distillation works in presence of fractionating column. So this fractionating column is used to separate these components. And how does it separate these components? Just look at the screen on the diagram there. So you have the crude oil entering here. That is from the source, that is under the earth crust, under the sea, under the sedimentary rocks. So it enters into a furnace. So furnace is a press where very high temperatures are produced. So this crude petroleum is heated. And then when it is heated, it enters now, this is the fractionating column. The whole of this is a fractionating column. But as it enters, you see they separate depending on the boiling points. So when you look at the one on the top, on the top of the fractionating column, this gas that comes on the top, which is commonly known as the natural gas, including methane, will be corrected at the top. So as you move up, the temperatures become lower. The temperatures are reducing as you move up. And because of these differences in temperatures, it makes it possible for different fractions to separate. So each, I beg your pardon, each fraction will separate depending on the boiling temperature. So the small hydrocarbons or the small components will move, so they will turn into the vapor first. Also, that means they are volatile. So they turn into the vapor first, and they will separate at the top of the column. Whereas others which have a high boiling point, some of them may remain either in liquid form or a semi-solid form. And those ones are having high boiling temperatures, and they remain at the bottom. That is where we have lubricating oil, we have paraffin wax, we have asphalt and bitumen and many others. These are some that we have mentioned because there are some others that are not included on the diagram. We have even naphtha and others. So the rest separate out according to their boiling point, so that the highest boiling fraction, i.e. the less volatile, with higher boiling points tend to condense more easily lower down the column. We have seen on the column the boiling temperatures when you move slightly backward, you will see that at the lower part of the fractionating column, you see the temperature around 400 degrees, and then around 150 and 20 degrees. So as you move up in the column, you see the temperatures are reducing. So the less volatile will remain at the bottom, while the more volatile will move at the top of the column. So that is what we are trying to mention there. That the bigger the molecules, the greater the intermolecular forces, so the higher the boiling point. So they separate depending on the size of the molecules. So the smaller ones are the ones that have less boiling point. That means the intermolecular forces are very low. That's why they have to turn into the vapor fast. And we can also look at the chemical properties of each substance in the mix does not change. So they remain the same. So in the fractionating column, as these fractions are heated, the chemical properties remain the same. It is only the physical properties that changes, because we have seen crude oil, which is black, thick liquid, changing into the liquid, the semi-solid, and then into the liquid, into the gases as well. So this means crude oil can be separated by physical means. In this case, fractional distillation. So fractional distillation is a physical method. And it is only possible because of the difference in the boiling points, as we mentioned even in senior one. The most volatile fraction, I have to repeat this because it is very important. The most volatile fraction, this is the physical property under which this fractionating column operates. The most volatile fraction, i.e. with the lowest boiling point, boils or evaporates so fast and goes to the top of the bottom, the top of the column, as we looked at in the column. So some uses of these products. Do you remember the products? We have seen lubricating oil, we have seen kerosene, there is naphtha, there is petroleum, there is natural gas, which includes a mixture of the alkanes like methane, like propane and butane, includes under those ones that are produced at the top of the column. So what are the uses of these? Some of the products, of course we are not going to look at all of them, but some of them. The refinery gas fractions under pressure are conveniently pumped to burner systems to be used for cooking and heating, and they are easily ignited and are explosive. Those are the gases. When we talk about the refinery gases, these are the hydrocarbons, the small hydrocarbons, the methane, the propane, butane, ethane, and those ones. So they, because of being smaller, they can be compressed under pressure into the liquid and then pumped for cooking and heating. Vehicle fuels are liquids for compact and convenient storage. They must be easily vaporized to mix with the air in the engine prior to the ignition. So there must be air. So in the petroleum, those ones that are used for like petrol, which is used for vehicle engines, it has to mix with the air so that it can burn to produce the oxygen. Rather, it mixes with oxygen so that it burns to produce the energy that can run the vehicle. And we have paraffin and kerosene. They are less flammable and safer, but not easily ignited. So as you move, you'll find they have slightly bigger molecules. They are less flammable because of they are bigger molecules. They are not too viscous to pump, not very volatile, and so not as flammable and dangerous as petrol or diesel, and therefore used for domestic use purposes. So they can also be used for domestic use. Lubricating oil, which is viscous, thick, where it is applied in moving parts of either of the machines, lubricating oil to reduce the friction, and helps to reduce the corrosion, because as the parts are moving against each other and they rub against each other for a long time, then some of the machines get to wear off and they corrode. So probably if even water under those running machines, water that is added there, then rusting may take place. So it can also reduce the rusting of those machines. Candle wax, which is used to make candle, the heat from the flame is insufficient to vaporize the hydrocarbons to burn them. But these candle waxes, like these ones you see in the parties, in the birth, in the anniversaries, so those are the ones we call the candle wax. They have birthday parties and many other anniversaries. They produce heat, but the heat they produce is not as that one that is produced by, so they produce, they are less flammable, and therefore the flame they produce is not as those ones of small hydrocarbons. Bitumen is a water-repellent solid at room temperature, but is readily melted, used as a base for road chipping, top surface, or sometimes directly it is also used as a waterproof roofing felt. So this bitumen, when they are making roads, you have seen sometimes they add some substances which are black, which they mix with some small gravel. So this black substance that is thick or that is viscous, that is added during the road surfacing, is this substance called bitumen. It is one of the products of petroleum products. It is water repelling, so it does not allow the water to enter into the soil that can destroy the road. So once they mix it with those small stones, so it will prevent the water to enter inside and therefore make the soil wet that can later destroy the road surface. So that is why it is added there. So it is very important also to remember that. So I just want us to pass through what we were supposed to look at from the beginning, just to make a flashback of what we were supposed to look at. So we said we look at the introduction. We have mentioned some of the substances that are found within the petroleum products. What are the petroleum products? Hydrocarbons. The hydrocarbons, which includes the kerosene, petrol, diesel, we have mentioned some of them. But the most important thing we have said that crude oil is one of the most important raw material that is used all over, that is important because it can be used to make a number of products. And we'll just have to see a number of very many products that we'll have to look at later. Then we looked at the origin of the crude petroleum. We said when animals die, they are formed when plants and animals die, decay, after millions of years. Millions of years, not 100 years, not 1,000 years, but millions of years. So these substances, these plant remains, move to under the sedimentary rocks, and they decompose there. So they will be acted on by pressure and a lot of heat, so they change into the crude petroleum. And we said these products are non-renewable. Non-renewable in a sense that they can be used up very fast. When you use them, they can be depleted. Like, for example, if we have said methane and coal are some of the substances that are associated with crude oil. At one time, methane will be used up. So if it is something that is used up, it is non-renewable. We call non-renewable fossil. When the fossil fuels are burned, we said they are obtained from carbon dioxide, from plants and animals. These plants and animals contain carbon. But when they die after millions of years, they will turn into these fossil fuels, which is a mixture of hydrocarbons. So these fossil fuels, when they are burnt, they will regenerate this carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So in the carbon cycle, this process is included. This process is included. You see, from animals and plants with carbon to form these fossil fuels, and when they are burned, then they regenerate carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is used by plants as well. And then animals eat plants, and when they decompose, so the process is continuous. Then we talked about how they are obtained. We said they are obtained by fractional distillation. Fractional distillation. Fractional distillation only is only possible if the substances to be separated have different boiling points. And we looked at the fractionating column. This is the process of fractional distillation, which contains a fractionating column, or this container. And looking at this container, you'll see, we said they are at different temperatures. So you'll see that, like fuel, if you look at the fuel here, like fuel here, you see the temperatures around 4, like diesel, like kerosene, you see the temperatures keep on changing, and depending on the substance that is eliminated out of the fractionating column. So the ones with the smaller molecules with low boiling points, low intermolecular forces will be produced at the top. And we looked at some of the uses that we have mentioned, some of the uses of these products for cooking, for fuel, as fuel by the moving machines like engines of vehicles, and we have mentioned this lubricating oil, which is quite used also in the moving parts, and paraffin and kerosene. They can also be used for burning. They can also be burnt and produce some heat, although it is less flammable compared to the other smaller ones. Lubricating oils that prevent the friction and corrosion of the moving parts of the machines. And we have mentioned the candle wax and bitumen, which is used as a water repellent substance and used in the road surfacing. That is what we are supposed to look at. Dear students, this marks the end of our lesson. Thank you so much for being attentive. I hope you have taken some important information in your notebooks. Hope to see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.